This was supposed to be a routine hearing, but it turned into a verbal takedown. Because when Sylvia Garcia confronted the head of the Securities and Exchange Commission, she didn't ask for speeches or spin. She demanded yes or no answers. And the first question set the tone. After Donald Trump claimed that affordability is a hoax, then claimed it was already solved, Garcia asked the simplest question imaginable. Is affordability a hoax? It followed WASI clarity. Tonight, we're breaking down the moment this hearing exposed just how uncomfortable accountability has become and why refusing to say yes or no told Americans everything they needed to know.
I now recognize the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Garcia, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Atkins, I wanted to start by just reminding us that on December 11th, the president said that affordability was a hoax, that it was made up by Democrats. And then recently in January, he says that Democrats don't talk about it anymore, that it's all solved. Do you think affordability is a hoax? Just yes or no?
I'm trying to address affordability through the.
Sure, just a yes or no. Is affordability a hoax?
Well, I don't know if it's a hoax or not, but it's something that we need to be.
Why is it so hard to say yes or no? You're the head of the SEC, you're a lawyer, you're well trained, you've dealt with these issues. You're talking about affordability. You're talking about hoaxes all the time?
No, well, I mean, so I'm focused on the reality of the situation.
So is it a hoax or not?
I think that that affordability is an important issue that we need to address.
So you refuse to answer. All right, well, let's move on. Because the SEC canon of ethics states that the SEC is an independent agency, and in performing their duties, members should exhibit a spirit of firm independence and reject any effort by representatives of the executive or legislative branches to affect their independent determination of any matter being considered by this commission, end quote. Yes or no? Again, yes or no? Do you agree that the SEC is an independent agency?
Yes, it's defined that way in the statute.
No, but do you believe, I mean, we can all read a statute, you're a lawyer, I'm a lawyer, but do you believe that it is an independent agency?
If Congress calls it that, then that's it. But
I'm asking you if you think it is, sir, not what Congress thinks or not what the statement says, because obviously I read it.
Right. And well, as you read, it's independence of mind, independence of thought.
So again, you refuse to answer. Yes or no, has the president, his family, members of his cabinet or staff in the White House, have they ever asked or implied that you propose or implement a certain policy?
Have they? Could you repeat that again? Sorry.
Well, yes or no, has the president, his family, members of his cabinet or staff in the White House ever asked or implied that you propose or implement a certain policy?
The president's issued executive orders, so that could
so is that a yes?
fall under what you just said.
So is that a yes?
He's issued executive orders.
Is that a yes, sir? So why do you refuse to just say a simple yes or no?
It's not susceptible to a yes or no answer. So
well, as a lawyer, I think, I'm offended that you wouldn't respond. Yes or no, has the president, his family, members of his cabinet or staff in his White House ever asked that you take or decline any enforcement action?
No.
No? Great. We finally got an answer. How regularly do you consult with the president, his staff, his family, or members of his cabinet?
Sorry, say that again.
Well, let me try to be louder. How regularly do you consult with the president, his staff, his family, or members of his cabinet?
I talk to people at the White House and in the cabinet a lot, so I would say that's pretty regular.
But do you consult with them on any of the operations or doings of the commission?
No.
No? Can you commit here today that for every decision you make as SEC chair, you ultimately will make that decision yourself, free from outside pressures or influence from this administration?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, good. We finally got some answers. Now, let me ask you about I want to follow up on Mr. Lynch's questions. You've dismissed 2, 4, 6, about 8 cases. Coinbase, Binance, Gemini Trust, Ripple, Kraken, Consensus, American Crypto Fed, Undue Finance. On what basis did you dismiss those cases?
Well, in general, it had to do with questions about registration and that sort of thing that was left over from the last administration.
I'm not understanding what kind of registration. Do you think the prior administration filed frivolous lawsuits?
Section 5. So
do you think the previous administration filed frivolous lawsuits?
The SEC has a very mixed record on these, and we are trying to clarify those rules along.
Does this protect investors in any way by dismissing these cases?
Those cases all have flaws and were dismissed.
Looks like you're not really wanting to give me any details, so we'll follow up in writing. What about the closed investigations? Robinhood,
Gentlelady's
Crypto,
time has
OpenSea, Unimus
expired.
Labs, Crypto.com, Fuse Crypto, and Depository
Gentlelady's
Trust
time
Company.
has expired. I would encourage you to submit the questions for
I
the
will,
record.
and I will
now recognize
submit
the
all the
gentleman from
questions you
Tennessee,
refuse to
Mr.
answer.
Rose, for
Thank you,
5
Mr.
minutes.
Chairman.
This exchange wasn't just tense, it was revealing. Because when Sylvia Garcia took the mic, she wasn't interested in speeches, deflections, or lawyerly gymnastics. She wanted something far more dangerous in Washington. Clear answers. And it started with one of the most basic questions facing everyday Americans right now: affordability. Garcia reminded the room that Donald Trump had dismissed affordability as a hoax, then later claimed Democrats don't talk about it anymore because it's supposedly been solved. That contradiction alone should raise alarms. But Garcia didn't editorialize. She asked a simple yes or no question. Affordability, a haircut followed, was telling. Instead of answering, the SEC chair danced around the question, talking about affordability without ever acknowledging whether it's real or fabricated. And Garcia called it out immediately. You're a lawyer. You're well-trained. Why is this so hard to answer? Because sometimes refusing to answer is the answer. This moment mattered because affordability easily abstracted. Rent. It's groceries. It's prescription drugs. It's whether families can keep up on corporate profits and executive compensation soar. Calling it a hoax isn't just wrong, it's insulting to millions of Americans feeling the squeeze. Garcia then pivoted to something just as critical: independence. That question became even more urgent when Garcia asked whether the president, his family, or White House staff had ever asked or implied that the SEC should pursue or avoid certain policies. First or deflection, executive orders, technicalities, anything to avoid a clean response. That's when Garcia's frustration mirrored what many Americans feel watching these hearings. Why is it so hard to answer yes or no? Why does accountability always come wrapped in legal fog? Eventually, after repeated pressure, an answer finally came. No, the president's not asked the SEC to take or decline enforcement actions. But by then, the damage was done. Because transparency delayed is trust denied. Garcia then zeroed in on something concrete: enforcement. Under this SEC leadership, multiple high-profile crypto cases were dismissed involving Coinbase, Binance, Ripple, Kraken, and others. Garcia asked why. Were these cases flawed? Were they frivolous? Did dismissing them actually protect investors? The answers were registration issues, left over from the prior administration. No clear explanation of how walking away from enforcement benefits the public. With us, the heart of this exchange. When regulators won't speak plainly about affordability, and they hesitate to affirm independence, when enforcement decisions affecting billions of dollars are brushed aside without explanation, people start to wonder who the system is really working. This wasn't about scoring political points. It was about whether powerful institutions can still look the public in the eye and give straight answers. And in that room, under that questioning, the Evasions spoke louder than any testimony. Because if affordability were truly a hoax, so would be easy. If independence were unquestioned, affirming it would be simple. And if enforcement decisions were sound, explaining them wouldn't be a problem. Sometimes the most revealing moments in Washington aren't what officials say, it's what they refuse to say. And that's exactly what Americans saw here.